Hi friends, I hope everybody's feeling okay. We are in the final month of the year of the snake. So the new Chinese zodiac, which is the year of the horse, will start February 17th. So we're in this final month of shedding. And I know for me, it's kind of felt pretty intense over the last couple weeks. We just had a new moon. And then now we have a significant amount of planets in Aquarius, Aquarius is all about humanitarianism. When I first started making videos, I think back in 2024, I talked about this upcoming narcissistic collapse, and we're seeing it play out in real time. We're seeing it in our government. We're seeing it play out in social media. You're probably seeing it play out in some of your personal relationships. Brooklyn Beckham posting about why he no longer is in touch with his family on social media. That really struck a chord with me because a lot of what he said was what happened in my dynamics with my family. And people may want to point the fingers at Brooklyn, but I believe him. I believe that there are power dynamics in these relationships, and there are certain children born to these families that are meant to break away. And at first we try to show our families that this is not the way to be, this is not the way to act, this is not what God has intended for life and relationships. But with narcissists, they cannot handle any sort of shame, criticism, accountability. They don't have empathy for other people. There are plenty of people that have narcissistic personality traits, but are not full-blown narcissist. With a full-blown narcissist, they really only care about their image, which you can kind of see with the Beckhams, right? I think combined total, they have a $900 million net worth. And that's a lot of power and control. And it takes a lot for a child to go no contact with their family. And it can start with the parents, but it will quickly spread to the siblings too if the siblings are not willing to step up and say, you know what, your behavior isn't right. This is not how we should treat people that we love and care about. One of the things that Brooklyn talked about was how his parents ruined his wedding. And I've talked about this on my personal Facebook page a little bit, but most people don't know, I was not talking to my dad for the couple weeks leading up to my wedding. It had gotten so bad with the way that he was trying to control me through his anger, and if I didn't do what he wanted, he would lose it. And that was a consistent pattern throughout my relationship with him. It takes a lot to walk away from a family. This is not something that people take lightly. This is not something they do for fun. Walking away from my family has been probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And ironically, it just so happened to be at the same time that I was divorcing my partner of 20 plus years and ending friendships. And it all kind of happened for me at once. And it was awful. But one thing that it was so clear to me that these people didn't care about me, because despite the fact that I was going through separation and going for divorce, they still showed their true colors consistently and still do. And, I talk about this because I want other people to know you're not alone. You're not crazy in wanting to walk away from people who treat you poorly, who try to manipulate you and who try to control the narrative. One of the biggest things that narcissists do is they take your reactions to their abuse and try to make it seem like you're crazy, you're this, you're that. And if you've experienced this dynamic since you were little, that it can affect your self-worth and how you see yourself. And inner security that's what wards off abuse in our external world. When we know ourselves well, and we're not seeking external validation and just our sense of self from everything outside of us, where we are getting our sense of self from ourselves, from God, and truly understanding who we are on an energetic level, on a physical level, on a spiritual level, Sometimes people are born into these dynamics to walk away, to break the pattern of abuse, control, and manipulation. And I know for a fact I was made to walk away from what I experienced in my family dynamics. And I also was made to identify these patterns of behavior in friends and romantic relationships so I could walk away a lot quicker. I've seen these patterns play out, not just with my family, but with romantic partners and with friends, where with narcissists, and again, narcissists don't actually love themselves. They are filled with holes. They do not have an inner sense of self. I said in my last video that they should love themselves less. That's not the truth. Narcissists are they're very insecure. So the way that they fill their sense of self is through manipulating and taking power away from other people. And I was really trained to give my power away to my dad, to my stepmom, and then to my partner, and not hold my own power, make my own decisions, not let other people change the way I felt about myself based on how they were treating me. And I went through all of that so I can help other people who are going through it identify the patterns of behavior and learn to walk away. A narcissist lacks empathy. They are not capable of holding themselves accountable and really making changes in their life that would better themselves. And they cannot handle any shame. So if you criticize a narcissist or you call them out on bad behavior, they will flip it on you, they'll explode, they will convince you that you are the problem instead of their behaviors that led to your reaction. And that was a significant problem with my parents, but as well as my partner, where if I said, hey, I don't really like it when you do this, they would then explode or turn it on me and make it all my fault. And for a long time, I owned it. And I just kind of accepted that I was the problem. And it took my awakening and it took walking away from those people to learn that no, my reactions to abuse are normal. It is normal to get angry when somebody is manipulating you, lying to you, abusing you, screaming in your face, using a physical presence to dominate you. That's normal to get angry at. And I think, religion and our government are some of our biggest narcissistic templates that we have that are governing our world right now. And people will use the Bible or scripture as a justification for abuse. And I am here to tell you that Jesus would condemn a lot of what's happening on the planet right now. You think that God cares about invisible borders? You do? He doesn't. God does not care about invisible borders. God cares how you treat yourself and how you treat others. And what we're witnessing in this country with our president is absolutely a collapse of a narcissistic template. You are seeing narcissists play out in the government with our law enforcement. It is not normal to shoot people in the face on the street. It is not normal to storm schools and rip children from their homes. It is not normal to detain people because you're not sure of their immigration status. That is not normal, and that is absolutely not what Jesus came here to teach. So using scripture to condone what's happening is absolute blasphemy. And I think one of the ways that religion can control us is by telling us that divorce is bad. And a hill that I will die on is God did not write your contract, your paper government contract, as a spiritual union. That is not the one he's protecting. If you chose to get married and it's not a true spiritual union and it's not something that God signed off on, guess what? That union is not protected. And if there is abuse happening on any levels, he absolutely wants you to walk away. That was your lesson. Your lesson was to not get married in the first place, to wait to get married for true love, true spiritual union, to wait it out, not conform to what society wants you to believe. You know, I've said before, I knew I was not supposed to marry my ex-partner. I knew it. And I tried very hard to get out of that relationship. But everybody convinced me that that was the right thing to do. And because, again, I was giving my power away to everybody around me, my parents, my partner, friends, I really wasn't able to stick up for myself and say, no, that this is not what I want. I know what I want, and this is not it. And so I stayed in that relationship for a long time, partly because it was crazy making. You know, anytime I would express myself, the wrath would come down on me. And because that was a pattern in my childhood that I was repeating, it felt normal and it felt familiar, and it kind of just felt like this is what life is. But I am here to promise you that that is not what life is. And if you have experienced that as a child, as a teen, as an adult, you're meant to walk away from that and really get your internal sense of self from yourself and from God. And, you know, narcissism and these other kind of demonic spirits can only attach to you when you have holes in your soul. And most narcissists were kind of trained to be this way through either emotional neglect, physical neglect, some sort of trauma, where instead of kind of leaning into the good parts of themselves and recognizing that that behavior was wrong, that they chose to steal power from other people in order to feel relevant. And that is demonic control. That is, if you're having to seek other people for external validation, for a sense of self, you are literally giving parts of yourself away to these demonic entities. And we are meant to fill ourselves up with positivity and love and the truth from God, not from your physical mom and dad, sister, brother, best friend, boyfriend, husband, girlfriend, whatever. That's not who gets to tell you about yourself. It's important to have a sense of self first, and then you can kind of step out into the world. And if somebody's not treating you with, you know, in alignment to how you want to be treated, how you treat yourself, it's really easy to walk away. I've had to walk away from a lot of people over the last few years. And, you know, I think I make it look pretty easy, but it hasn't been easy. It's been really difficult not having, you know, I don't talk to anybody in my family. You know, separating from a partner of so long, an ex-best friend who really showed me her true colors and is somebody that I would never, ever want to be friends with again. And we were friends for a long time. That was somebody I thought was a soul sister. That was somebody who I loved dearly and I showed up for consistently, but she showed me who she was. And walking away from that has been difficult. And I've had anger about it, and I've had this sense of betrayal, and I've had to kind of process all of that with the sense of that is just a reflection of who she is, and was never a reflection of me or my worth or how I deserve to be treated. And I've gone into a season of kind of isolation where I've really had to develop who I am, who I know I am, and how I want to show up in the world and how I want to be treated. And, you know, again, recognizing these patterns of behavior of when somebody is jealous of you, when somebody is trying to humble you, when somebody's trying to control your mind. our thoughts are not always our own. And when we can sit back and become the observer of our thoughts, we have a different level of power. And you can kind of see how these thoughts get passed down through the news, through media, but there is this higher consciousness, this collective consciousness, where people who are open receive information. And you'll notice it on social media when spiritual people or people that are kind of expressing the same things, they're expressing the same messages because they're getting these downloads. They're getting this kind of upgrade to our software programming, if you will. And that's why we've seen this influx of spirituality, this influx of people learning to kind of stick up for themselves and walk away from relationships or programming that they don't subscribe to. And, my biggest message that I want to get out is that Jesus is not just love and light. Jesus condemned evil. And if you are seeing evil being done in your friend group, in your family dynamics, in your government, in your religious systems, it is okay to speak up. And in fact, sometimes that is what God is calling you to do. God has called me to talk about abuse and narcissism, one, because I've experienced it. I've been trained by the masters in it because I had to get this gift of discernment where I can spot it very easy. And again, the signs of a narcissist, they're extremely insecure, but they act and have a greater self-importance than what's really happening on the inside. There's a cognitive dissonance that's happening with these people from how they actually feel about themselves on the inside to how they present themselves on the outside. Lack of accountability, lack of empathy. They don't care how other people feel. And our government right now is really making that clear as day. And I don't know if I've talked about this on my videos before, but I remember talking to a neighbor before this election, and her political viewpoints were very different from mine, but we were having a great conversation, and she said, I think that this administration will show the corruption that's been happening in the government. And I said, you know what? I agree, but I don't think it's going to happen in the way that you think it is. And we're seeing that. We're seeing how corrupt this government is and how easy it is for them to wreak havoc on our society, on our financial systems, on our personal systems, on our personal beliefs. And I am really begging you to ask yourself, what are your personal beliefs? Do you really believe that Jesus and God divides lines based off invisible country borders? Do you really believe that it's okay to have police brutality and ICE going into cities and ripping kids out of schools, killing women on the street, killing men, doing all of that, detaining people who don't need to be detained? Do you really, honestly, in your heart of hearts, believe that that's acceptable? That that's how we should treat one another? If we're all atoms of God, which we are here for a purpose. And it is to treat ourselves in the way that God wants us to be treated, to set the standard for ourselves, and to treat others in such a way, without manipulation, without control, without brutality. If you have experienced narcissistic abuse or manipulation, it can be extremely hard to detect. These people come across as charming and loving, and oftentimes, covert narcissists will show the rest of the world that they are grand and they'll help anybody and they're just the best on the planet. But at home, they are extremely emotionally abusive. They can be physically abusive, financially abusive. They will use any sort of control or dominance that they think they have over people because they're extorting their energy. And if you just look at this from an energetic standpoint, An empath, or somebody who is kind of filled with love and light, has God running through them. The narcissist does not. So they come into relationships to try to steal that energy source because they don't have it for themselves. And the empath did not attract this because they did something wrong. They might have needed to learn something from the narcissist. Again, how to walk away, gifts of discernment, just kind of understand, it's like a training ground. It really is. Like, my childhood, my marriage was a training ground for spiritual warfare. And, again, demonic entities will attach to you when you have holes in your spirit that you feel like need to be filled from this external material 3D world, whether it's by relationships or by, material quest, whatever it is. True sovereignty comes from knowing who you are despite all of those things. And again, when you're chosen to break these generational traumas, you will go through a period of isolation, because that is where God teaches you who you are on your own, without the world telling you who you are, without your bank account dictating how you feel about yourself, without these relationships imprinting on you. It is imperative to have this time for yourself so you can really see kind of what's been going on. My pattern recognition skills are on point, and I do not always let other people in my life know what I know about them. One, because I've learned that they're not going to change. If you're a narcissist and I don't know if narcissists can change, quite frankly. I personally have not seen it in my life, so I don't know if they can change. I've tried to change them. I've tried to help them understand that the way that you treat people is not okay. This is not loving. This is not kind. Controlling people and manipulating people to get what you want out of them, I just feel like that's got to be one of the worst things that you can possibly do to another divine being. And while we're all born divine, our choices in our life will put us in different energies, whether it's wounded, disoriented, distorted, or these divine sovereign beings. And the hope is that you can grow out of these wounded and distorted energy templates into this divine sovereign being, and then you'll help lift other people out of it. Talked a lot about frequency, how your frequency kind of sends out a signal to the universe of who you are, and that frequency will ripple into your environment. When you have a negative perspective on the world, whether you feel like you're a victim, you're a victimizer, just everything is negative. You're always complaining. You're always seeing the negative in a situation. You are going to attract more negative experiences. But when you can break out of that and start alchemizing the lessons that you're meant to learn, you can start shifting your environment. You can start shifting yourself, the lessons that you're calling in, the experiences that you're calling in, but most importantly, your view on yourself. And that subconscious inner child view of yourself is the most important. When you can connect that inner child that was born of God, is of God, that's when you are free. When you're not tied to duty and obligation, thinking that just because you married that person or you have kids with them means that you need to suffer in an abusive situation, or that again, just duty and obligation. Like if you agreed to pay for all of these things, that you need to do that for the rest of your life, because that's not true. If God's calling you to free yourself from that duty and obligation, because it was not a duty and an obligation He gave you, then that's what you need to do. You need to step into your true assignment, which is being a free and sovereign being, having thoughts for yourself, being the observer of this collective energy. And social media, news, all of that is designed as programming to implant thoughts into yourself to keep you from feeling good enough, to keep you from stepping out into your truest self, whatever that may be, expressing yourself and honoring your true feelings. Our feelings are our guides. Again, not saying that you have to let your feelings control you or take over you, but understanding what your feelings are trying to tell you. Anger, your boundaries are being crossed. Somebody is not treating you the way that you're meant to be treated, and that's a sign to either correct the situation, walk away entirely. All of our feelings, anxiety, all of that, they're cues from our environment that something is not sitting right with our spirit. Towards the end of my relationship, I could not stand to be around my partner. He would come down in the morning and I would jump up and need to leave the room. The anxiety that I felt in his presence was borderline crippling, that I was considering going on anti-anxiety medicine. And something in my spirit told me that that was not for me. And when I made the decision to separate from that relationship, the amount of relief that I felt was how I knew I made the right decision, and how I have been able to stick with it throughout all of the hoovering attempts. And it was exhaustive of what that person was trying to do to keep me stuck in a relationship that never benefited me at all. And, I say never benefited in me, but I learned a lot about narcissistic people. I learned how to walk away. But I didn't have to learn it that way. And I want people to understand that repeating the patterns of your childhood traumas into your adult relationships, that is a karmic loop. That is you looping through the same cycles that you were supposed to outgrow, but whatever programming, conditioning, manipulation that you've experienced is keeping you stuck there. You don't have to stay stuck, my friends. You do not have to stay stuck. You can say enough is enough. This is not a pattern I am willing to repeat. I am not willing to repeat the pattern of every time I express myself to a friend, to a family member, to a partner, that they lash out at me and turn everything against me. That is not a pattern I am willing to repeat. I am not willing to repeat the pattern of giving my power away to other people to help me make decisions over my life. Why would I do that? That's wild. It's wild that I did that for so long. And there is a grieving process that happens when you're coming out of these relationships. And you're not grieving the relationship. You're not grieving the person. You're grieving everything that was stolen from you. Your self-confidence, your opinions, your feelings, your discernment, all of that was stripped away from you systematically. And while we're not fighting the flesh of that person, we are literally fighting the demons that inhabit that body. If that person is not growing and changing and saying, you know what, I have been acting out of alignment with my truest self, and I'm going to hold myself accountable, and I'm going to change my ways, and you actually see that happening, you don't have to continue that dynamic. I don't care if you have children together, you don't have kids, your blood family, you've been friends for 20 years. It does not matter. You get to make the choice for yourself when to walk away at any time. And this is true from walking away from relationships, businesses, religion. I think that, again, using the Bible that was originally written 3,000 years ago and then rewritten 900 years ago by the government, by King James, it was rewritten and things were taken out so that people did not understand the true power that they have within themselves. God does not live outside of you. He lives inside of you. And, God's going to flee from those empty vessels. God's not going to stay in an empty human body that's distorted and treating other people in a demonic way. Like, God's out of there. He says, this isn't my body. So when we're looking at all of the corruption in the world and we're saying, where was God? He was in you. He showed up in your physical vessel, asking you to move, asking you to do something about it, asking you to speak up for the injustices that we're seeing. We cannot continue to be bystanders to the corruption that is happening in this country, worldwide, use the Bible as a justification for that corruption. That is not okay to do, people. It's not. You have got to step up and live how Jesus lived, right? I was watching a video the other day where a girl was talking about, actors read the script and then embody the character. Read your scripture and embody that character. That's what you're called here to do. Are you being loving and kind and really uplifting the people around you? Or are you spreading fear, hate, and not condemning evil? Are you doing that? Are you saying, you know what? It's okay that this corruption and this abuse is happening because it's not happening to me. That's what my siblings have said. It's okay that she experienced that. We saw it. We've acknowledged it. We know that it was real, but it wasn't happening to me, so it's okay. And she shouldn't talk about it. She shouldn't bring that information to the forefront. Really? No, that's what I'm here to do. I am here to help people who have experienced similar things in their life break free and be sovereign, divine beings. And, when they say you'll know them by their fruits, you'll know it by the energy that people have. Do you feel peace around them? Do you feel loved around them? Do you feel just kind of good and warm and fuzzy around them? Or do you feel like your stomach hurts? Do you feel anxiety? Do you feel like something is just not right here? That's how you know. And, pay attention to how your kids and your animals feel. They are very attuned to people's energy. My kids are very aware of the people that I've walked away from and will speak openly and honestly about how those people's energy has made them feel. That's telling. You can feel uncomfortable in my energy. That's fine. I'm not going to take that personal. I know who I am, and I know that the people in my life do feel loved and peaceful and seen in a way that they may have not felt seen before. I know that that's how people feel in my energy. So that to me is telling. You'll know them by their fruits. And when God has said, no weapons formed against you shall prosper, what he meant is, I will use every evil eye and every attack to heal you, to help you grow, to learn to walk away. So while I know people are still sending me evil eye and watching these videos and hoping that I fail and gossiping and talking about me, you're not going to see me fail because your weapons don't affect me. It's not going to change the way I feel about myself. It's not going to change the way that I show up and continue to pour into the people that God has assigned me to pour into. I'm very well aware when he's calling me to certain people. And I don't let people know what I know because you're not going to change. So why would I tell you that I know you're a manipulative narcissist? I'm just going to say, okay, you feel that way? Okay. Sometimes walking away is the most God-given gift that you can give yourself, and sometimes the other person too. Sometimes the gift that they needed is to lose the best thing that's happened to them by you walking away, by you not being their energetic container anymore. You know, people in my life, I can feel what they're feeling and I can transmute it. And I had not always known that that was what I was doing, but I'm not willing to carry something that you're not willing to heal yourself. You got to do your own work. You can't dump on everybody else and expect yourself to be healed. That's not the way it works. You have to heal yourself. You have to face your fears. You have to face the reality and not, you know, I've looked at people with these rose-colored glasses for a long time, and I had a very hard time understanding that people could be so evil. Like, it just does not make sense to me. It does not compute in my brain. But I had to see it firsthand. I had to see that, no, there are evil people and evil forces in the world, and it's my job to stay very far away from them. To not have them in my circle, to not share information with them, to not let them energetically attach to me. You got evil demons, that's on you. You need to go figure that out. Sorry. I can help people heal. I can help people see their circumstances in a different way. But if you're run by evil forces, you're not my assignment. That's not for me. And I no longer have to give you the benefit of the doubt. I doubt your benefits. I'm going to doubt your benefits from now on. You got to earn access to people. Not everybody is just free for you to energetically siphon from. You'll know you're around a narcissist or an energy vampire when you feel exhausted around them. You feel drained. They just suck the life out of the room. And unfortunately, because of the society that we live in, these people can be your neighbors, they can be your colleagues, and you can't always get away from them, but you can set up energetic boundaries of, I'm not here for that. You can't just dump on me. You can't energetically attached to me. I am a divine sovereign being. Like, I am my own person. You cannot attach to me. And I think that one thing that the Pluto and Scorpio generation is really here to do is to break free. And I've said this before, break free from these dynamics. Break free from this attachment that just because they're your family or your friend or your country does not mean that you have to hold an allegiance to them. You first have to honor yourself and the God that's within you. That's who you have to honor. And I have not wanted to speak out a lot about this because, you know, I know people will twist narratives and say I'm negative and I'm demonic and I'm evil and whatever. But the proof is in the pudding. I'm sorry. It just is. Your energy speaks for itself. And I am so incredibly grateful that I broke away from the people who were intentionally trying to cause me harm. Whether they were conscious of their choices or it was a subconscious pattern, that's not my issue. That's theirs. And when a loved one comes to you and says, this behavior is hurting me, a normal response from a healthy human is, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that my behavior was having that impact on you. I won't do that again. Not, screw you, you're a terrible person for having thoughts, feelings, and opinions, and I can treat you however I want. Do you hear how that sounds? It's a little crazy. And the pattern in every relationship that I have walked away from was when I expressed myself, you hurt me when you did this. Their response has always been trying to turn it around on me. Even my girlfriend, even ex-husband, family, they all did the exact same thing. Had zero accountability, zero concern with how I actually felt. So goodbye. Why would I want to be friends with somebody like that? Why would I want that person in my life? It's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to speak out about the things that have happened to you. It is not okay to lie and intentionally manipulate stories to triangulate situations to get people on your side. And that was another thing that all of these people did. When I stopped talking to my friend, she ran to other friends to talk about me. I didn't do that. I screenshot the text messages to let other people know, and I have not talked about those people since, because I do not care about you. I don't care about you. You lost something good. I did not. Same thing with my family. They want to talk amongst themselves. They want to triangulate between my siblings and whoever else. Good on you. If that makes you feel better, go ahead. I don't want anything to do with you. And while it is sad as a human to not have family, it's even sadder as a soul to accept abuse just because you're genetically related to somebody else or you have long-term history with somebody else. And it's sad for your soul. So free your soul. Listen to these stories of other people who have gone through this. And, I've worked with a lot of teens who are experiencing similar dynamics. And if there's one thing in my life that I could do is to reach every single one of them and say, you're not the problem. Your parent who can't control their emotional outburst, who can't control how they talk to other people, who lies, cheats, and manipulates to get what they want, they are the problem, not you. And I know the work that I'm here to do. And while it is to spread love and light and help people connect to their divinity that's within themselves, it's also to flip tables and condemn evil. And we can't continue to sweep stuff under the rug. We can't. We can't let the Beckhams of the world think that it's okay to post pictures of their long lost son, acting as if just because that son got married, he walked away from the family. It takes guts to walk away from your family. Brooklyn Beckham did not do that because, he felt like it. You think somebody's going to walk away from a $900 million family dynamic? No. I also walked away from a very rich family dynamic. You think that I couldn't have used financial support over my life if I just did what I was told? Of course I could have. But I will not sell my soul for the use of a lake house, for the use of a Colorado house, for anything. I'm not selling my soul for anything. Not because you're my biological father, not because you're a sibling or a friend that I've had for 20 years, or even these soul contracts that I've had these past lives with. Absolutely not. You're going to treat me with integrity, and we all should be treated with integrity, but we all also have to treat other people with integrity. It has to go hand in hand. So I implore you to understand who Jesus really was, what Christ consciousness really is, because it can dwell inside you if you allow it. If you can see it for what it really is, that it's love and light, but it's condemning evil too. It's flipping tables that were built off the backs of hurting other people. So, with all of these planets in Aquarius, we're breaking out of this control from other systems and really stepping into it's time to do what's best for humanity. and not just what's best for me, not just what's best for people that look like me, people that were born in the same physical parameters as me. God does not care about our invisible country borders. He does not. When he said divide them by nations, he meant evil versus not. And our society has an obsession with being good. Being good, morally good, is condemning evil. It's speaking up against corruption and crime and abuse and manipulation. And it might start with your family. And then it might move into your religious systems. And then it might move into the government. But it does start with you. It does. So, like Michael Jackson says, man in the mirror, right? It starts with you. You can actually make changes. You can. But it starts with holding yourself accountable, saying, you know what? I'm not going to accept this behavior anymore. I'm not going to accept that what we're seeing play out on a national level is normal. It is not. And next time you ask, where was God when all of this bad stuff happened? I want you to remember he was in you. And he was instructing you to do certain things that you decided not to do because it did not look good on paper. It didn't fit what society tells you is good. So, just remember, God is within you, and he's watching to see how you're handling this. And so are your children. Your children are watching. They know that what's happening right now is not okay. And whatever you don't break in your own life, you are passing down to your children to break in theirs. So, if God's calling you out of a marriage, if God's calling you out of religious systems, if God's calling you out of a friendship, if God's calling you out of your own belief systems, your internal stories, let him work through you. Change is possible. Healing happens on the other side. And accepting yourself and your full spectrum is important. So, take this message as you will. I do hope it reaches the people that it needs to. I really honestly pray that if there's somebody still stuck in a manipulative relationship dynamic, that they can see this and know that what they're going through was not normal and it is okay to walk away. And if God is calling you to walk away, he will provide the way. I didn't have the money to get out of that relationship. I didn't have the money to move. I didn't have any of that. Guess what? He provided it to me every single time I took action. Every single time he said, walk away, I'm going to start packing. I don't know where I'm going. I'm going to start packing. So if God is calling you out of these relationship dynamics, trust it's for a reason. You might have to go through a period of grief. You might have to go through a period of healing. You might have to go through a period of isolation. But it's all going to be worth it in the end. And who knows, maybe you can help somebody else. And maybe that's your gift. So, God bless you. Heal your little wounded hearts. And don't let other people tell you who you are. Get it from God. He knows you best. Have a great day.